Fantastic. I've never done anything like this before, so this is very cool for me. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Okay, well, let's get started. You're on Musings of the Shy podcast, and I'm speaking to RiverDoge, or otherwise known as the Reddit username. How do you say it? Khmer?
Yeah, Chimera. It's
Khmer?
a yeah, it's a beast from Greek mythology, but it has more to do
Yeah.
with music
Oh,
than
okay.
anything.
I
And
just
Dogecoin.
wanted to. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was saying it right. And we're talking about his adventure down the Ohio River and then eventually the mighty Mississippi River. Yeah. Okay,
Pretty
well let's get started. Let's talk about a little bit about you. Why the Ohio River? You spoke in your post when you posted on Reddit that this was a dream of yours. So how did that become a dream?
You know, my whole life I've always kind of lived around water. I always loved water. I'm on the swim team, this, that, and the other. And I live
Okay.
in downtown Cincinnati right now.
Okay.
From downtown Cincinnati, you can see the Ohio River going right through it every day. So I'd be at the gym and working out, and I'd be looking at this river. It was staring me in the face, and I felt like it was challenging me in a way. So then I'm looking at the river, and I'm like, how can I make this positive? How can I make this even bigger than what I'm trying to accomplish? What can I do to involve more individuals and make it fun, make it interesting, and make it have a purpose? And the more I pursued, the more I learned about Dogecoin, the more I began trading cryptocurrencies myself. I realized how hand in hand they went with the altruistic nature of Dogecoin, and it ended up being something crazy, crazy.
Okay. Well, you spoke about the altruistic nature of Dogecoin. Is that what gravitated you to the cryptocurrency? Is the charitable nature and the friendliness and the willingness to just to constantly share with one another?
That's exactly it. Because this idea, this concept of trying to prove that the currency has value by the altruistic nature of the entire community, I would have died out there. I wouldn't have had food. I wouldn't have had any money. I wouldn't have anything without the community that was keeping me alive solely off of Dogecoin. So, yeah, to answer your question, that nature, that giving, that fun, and that positivity always seemed like the real step ahead that Dogecoin had over any other cryptocurrency. And I wanted to be the physical representation of that, or bring that aspect into a story that people could tell about Dogecoin forevermore.
Okay. And how did you get into cryptocurrency itself? Did you start with Bitcoin or was Dogecoin your first coin or
Well, I have my best friend. He's like the most magnificent, masterful genius of computer technologies that I've ever met. And he was really big into the Bitcoin back in the day, and we made some minor investments with that. But when Dogecoin came around, it was just so in line with our personalities because we're really fun loving, joke around. And the fact that it was kind of based on a meme, I saw a lot of potential for that growth and for that positivity to stay where it was. So,
Yeah, that's what drew me was that it was on a meme, and it was when I first came on the community within the first week of its existence. It was like I knew some things about Bitcoin, I knew some technology stuff, but I didn't know how to operate the details. And people were just like, "Well, what questions do you have? I can answer them for you." I was like, "Okay, well, what is a wallet? What does that mean?"
yeah.
Just the basics, and it just drew me in, and I've been part of it since. But to get back on the Ohio River, you said you wanted to make it bigger than yourself and to get more people involved and kind of share the community. But how do you like the details? How do you plan going down a river? I mean, we're so cocooned in our safety with our technology and our modern nature to just go down a river just la di da da. It seems mind boggling to me.
It is. It's kind of crazy. And as much as I love technology, I realize that there are aspects of technology that are trapping me. And I
Hmm.
can't get away from it. I couldn't escape. Even my job at the time, I was a store manager of a cell phone store.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here and I'm inundated with technology every day. I love it. I love to learn more about it. I love to stay up to date on all the newest technological advances. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't even know if my children will be able to go on an adventure down the Ohio River just due to new laws or new technologies. And I have a rare opportunity in life where I feel physically fit enough to do it. Um, of course, there are other reasons personally, like I knew I'd be reconnected with nature and I'd have a new perspective and I'd have truly an adventure to tell my grandchildren about. So these were all factors in making me decide to go on the river. But how you survive when you're out there,
Hmm.
or like planning that I had prior, absolutely nothing. I really don't have much wilderness experience. I couldn't make a campfire if I didn't have matches or a
Yeah.
lighter or something of that nature.
Okay.
So I winged it. No, no real planning. My dad is a master of all things.
Uh-oh. Oh
the
no.
natural.
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked is because you went down in a cocoon and you're going up against, because the Ohio River is a shipping lane in essence, and you're going up against,
Mhm.
there's massive boats, there's recreational boats. I mean, were you concerned by that? Like, to get caught in a wake, or people wouldn't see you, or did you take that precaution, or is that a concern?
There is a degree of danger when you're on the water, especially on a river. But to me, that's kind of what where the adventure comes into it because
Okay.
you know that things could really go terribly, terribly wrong. And in fact, when I got all the way down to New Orleans, I
Hmm.
had met a gentleman on the last day. He was in Baton Rouge, and Baton Rouge it's huge. Like from Baton Rouge all the way to New Orleans is basically nothing but industry. You can't even see shore. So the fact we found anywhere to camp was a miracle in itself. But anyway, this gentleman was waving at me really obnoxiously and loud. I was in New Orleans. I was throwing beads down off the banners and everything. And I get to talking to this gentleman, and it turns out he was the same one that was yelling obnoxiously to me on the river. And he's like, "You're the canoe guy? That's crazy. That's crazy." So the more we got to talking, he was like, honestly, you really are an idiot because 2 weeks ago, look what I found. And he had a picture of a dead body of a canoer that had gotten chopped up by barge propellers. And he was
Oh.
going to find the body. And I was like, holy cow, thank goodness that I found Yoda on this adventure. Otherwise, who knows? That could have been me. I could have found the same fate.
Well, let's talk about it. You guys met midway through your journey, and you guys were both canoeing down the Ohio River. And you started at different points, didn't you? Like, was he started further away from you, or was he just further along? I'm not sure where at the point in the journey you guys started.
It's really, really bizarre. Sometimes I truly feel like there has to be some divine or grand design that we mere humans cannot understand yet because we actually left Pittsburgh on the
Mm-hmm.
same day. Except there are two rivers that go into Pittsburgh, and he left from this river, I left from the other river, and we didn't cross paths for 11 days right at the midpoint of Cincinnati, my native town, and Pittsburgh, his native town. And since we met right in the middle on that day, we're like, you know what? I hate Pittsburgh. You hate Cincinnati, but let's just eat lunch. And he turned out to be a really cool guy. He gave me a harmonica. And I was like, man, I bet we can make better time, and I wouldn't go crazy if I had a friend on this journey. So we just went from there, and it worked out well.
I would imagine being 11 days by yourself or alone. I mean, even if you had like a book or music to kind of occupy your mind and you're enjoying nature, maybe taking pictures and stuff, after a time you kind of miss the human voices. I mean, was
Yeah.
that a concern of yours, or were you so glad you met Yoda and realized, okay, there's some salvation here?
Both Yoda and I, we had talked about it when we met each other. You don't realize how much a requirement human interaction is to your everyday life. Like it really does keep you going, keep you talking, keep you sharp, keep you witty. But when you're left to your own devices, your mind goes to some wild places. Some of them are awesome. Some of them are like, man, I never really pictured life in that way before. I need somebody to bounce ideas off of and make sure I'm still in tune with reality. So I'm really glad I found them. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that I didn't find them till 11 days in and did get a little bit of time to soul search and dig within myself.
Okay, now let's talk about how did Dogecoin Athletics sponsored you, or like, how did that happen? Did you
That
plan that
was
before, or was that midway through your journey?
completely up to Dogecoin Athletics. I was just talking about the journey. I said I was open to sponsorships or if anybody was really interested in using this story to piggyback their products or any Dogecoin related items, I'll be happy to talk about it and put it in my daily blogging activities on Reddit. And Dogecoin Athletics, they really reached out. They sent me all kinds of products, and it was really cool to be wearing Dogecoin merchandise while I was meeting new people on the river, and they're like, "Oh, what's your shirt mean?" It was just a great segue, and
Well,
to
let's
talk
talk
about
about that. Like, when was the first time someone asked you about your shirt as you were either docking or camping somewhere? When did that happen?
what the first time, the one that really comes to mind too, is we were in Louisville, and
Okay.
Yoda and I were actually talking about going our separate ways because we're like, we're great friends now. We'll probably catch each other down the river at some point, but let's go on some day adventures. Like, let's just go on the journey we intended to go on and go our separate ways. So we're gonna go our separate ways after Louisville, and we met this really spiritual lady. super spiritual, super religious, but very cool. And she started talking to me just because of my Dogecoin shirt. She's like, "Oh, what's Dogecoin?" We got into some really interesting conversations, and when we explained the journey to her, she said, "Boys, don't go your separate ways. It's dangerous out there. Iron strengthens iron. Stick together." And I was like, wow, either this is a sign or like the fact that the Dogecoin was related to the sign. I was like, she's right. It kind of does make it a more crazy story that we just picked up a random adventure with each other as total strangers. And I'm really glad we had each other on the Mississippi because that was much more dangerous than the Ohio River.
Well, what is the difference? I know that the Mississippi, is the pretty much the water highway of America, but as far as in comparison to the Ohio River, like is there any visual comparison you can give the audience to kind of compare it in their minds? I mean, is it is the Ohio River, like I imagine it as like a 2-lane blue highway, and the Mississippi is like the super highway you see in like near major cities in a sense. Is it kind of like that?
You hit it spot on, really. I mean, the Ohio River is dammed up effectively 22 times, and they have these giant, huge river locks that really change the imagination. But the Mississippi River is so powerful, the lower Mississippi, that is, that the lower Mississippi has absolutely no river dams because the river is too powerful. The river is legitimately 4 to 5 times as fast. The waves can be 10 to 15 feet high, and then
really?
you have ocean barges. These barges are ready for the ocean, and they're kicking up wake that you can't even imagine. So when you're fighting the wind, ocean barges, this, that, and the other on the Mississippi, it is insane. It's like riding a cow all day, up and down, fighting it. I don't know how we didn't tip, but still made it, still here.
Well, I imagine the elements was probably a factor. I mean, going on the Mississippi is very different from the Ohio River, but just in general, was the weather like? Did you get rained on a lot? Was it the right point in time, the season for you to do this, or did you time it improperly, or were you had a blessing?
Would have been better. Like if it was any earlier, it would have been too hot and too disgusting. I got in, got in just at the perfect time, just as summer was ending, and to be on the river through the end of summer and the beginning of fall was incredible. I can't even begin to explain some of the excuse me, I need to get some more Gatorade, but I can't even begin to explain some of the scenery that I was able to see at that time of year. So it was definitely the perfect time. I couldn't have planned it better. It was all accidental perfection.
Okay. And how were you able to interact, because you were on the river? I know you had some communication issues, but did you when you camp, were you able to load up? Did you have to go to town to kind of do your post? I mean, did you write things out when you went along to remember and talk about this? I mean, when you were composing your blogs, did you just kind of stream of consciousness, or?
It was every blog entry, and they were all stream of consciousness, and they were all. Each one was, I was sitting in a crazy position in a hammock somewhere. I was under a tree or in a rabbit hole or crazy places, writing these journal entries as quickly as possible just to fight the battery life problems that I was having because the solar charger wasn't quite as effective as I'd hoped it would be. And I was like, all right, I got to write the coolest entry, get all of the best details of the day, and make sure that I sound literate enough to not look like an idiot to all these very affluent and well-read people. And that was a battle because I'm going back now what was wrong with my grammar? What was I saying? But at the same time, people don't understand I was starving at times. I'm sitting here upside down in a rainstorm trying to write something eloquent, and it's coming out good in my mind's eye, but when I look back and read it, I'm like, wow, I probably had literary critics that just wanted to slap me, so I apologize to all the critics, but I was doing the best I could with the conditions I was working against.
Okay, well, let's talk about you were survived on Dogecoins, and people were tipping you every day through the post into your designated Doge account. I mean, how did you convert from on the road into the real world? I mean, what was the hurdles that you experienced in doing that?
That would have been a major problem if I didn't have a great supporting cast behind me back home. I don't think I would have had the battery power, the time, or to go through the headaches of converting everything back to money. So I had friends with the passwords to my accounts, and they were able to do all money conversions and send physical cash right back to my account so I could use a card and make it much more simple. Otherwise, I would have been up a creek without a Dogecoin, really.
And I also saw on your journey that people sent you packages to you, like at a designated camping or locking. Was that like a random thing, or did people meet up and knew you were going to be there? Like, here's this stuff. I mean, how did that go down?
Each package, each instance was different in its own right. Each had its own story behind it. So yeah, it ranged everywhere from strangers in the Dogecoin community hearing about the journey and reaching out to me, asking for addresses that they could ship it to. Then it even sometimes random strangers who heard the story, they just felt compelled or inspired or in some way they're like, oh, I want to help. How do I learn more? How do I do this, that, and the other? How do I buy some Dogecoin to send it to you? So every way imaginable of gaining help and attention and bringing publicity to Dogecoin. It felt like it happened out there. It was pretty interesting and
Well, I also
exciting.
saw that you had, was it like two news stories? I mean, was that just random stuff where people just knew you were coming along and they just approached you through your support network, or how did that go about?
That was another really mysterious and interesting thing too. So, like I had mentioned earlier, I did have a great team behind me back home,
Hmm.
along with my parents and close friends and everybody that was really rooting for me and cheering for me. So, I did have a lot of my friends in my network. They were reaching out to news sources and newspapers, especially my mom. Big thanks to her. She's walking in the background, but she was helping reach out just to help the publicity of the story. And also people in the Dogecoin community, they took all of my information, they knew where I was going to be, and they were contacting people in the media themselves. So I had a couple video news opportunities, and then I've been in many newspapers. I have to release the articles on the Dogecoin Reddit account. But it's been interesting in that regard too. I'm not used to being interviewed or talking about what's been going on, but it's a cool transition and change for sure.
Okay, so you're going down the Ohio River and you reached the end of it. What made you decide that you could push on and go down that super highway? I mean,
Well, it's interesting you asked that. Actually, from the very beginning, I knew that New Orleans had to be the end, the final destination. And in fact, when I was in Pittsburgh, the
hmm.
last meal that I had in Pittsburgh was at NOLA, which is right in the middle of Pittsburgh's square, their main square. Anyway, NOLA is a New Orleans restaurant. So from the
Hmm.
very beginning, before I put my vote in, I was like, New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. When I saw the Mississippi River, though, and it was like a mile wide across, 3 miles at some parts, 7 miles at flood stage. I was like, what am I getting myself into? Am I ready? But luckily, the Ohio River was kind of like a training ground for everything I was going to see on the Mississippi.
And so when you finally reached New Orleans, were you like happy? Were you elated? Were you sad that the journey was over? There wasn't more of a river? Or what was your emotional peak on this?
It was that day I will never ever forget as long as I live. It was the most bizarre and interesting rush of emotions you could imagine. I mean, first of all, I'm paddling down this river, and
Hmm.
there are shipping yards, shipping containers, river barges, huge cranes dropping off giant packages to ships and things of this nature. And then there are people from all over the world waving to me from China or Scandinavia and Nova Scotia and Africa, and they're like, "Oh, hey, Riverman, yay!" Because they never knew about their things. So I feel like the president on inauguration day or something like, "Yes, yes, great to see you." And then it was even cooler because we had friends and family waiting at the place we were ending in New Orleans. The friends and family told a bunch of drunk strangers at the spot we were ending. So we ended with like 100 or so people all cheering us on. There were the Natchez. It's like a riverboat casino in New Orleans. They were honking their horn when we were passing them. It was the coolest moment of my life, but it was the perfect way to end. It was a rush of emotions. Obviously, I was really sad to end, but at the same time, it was good to eat real food and not be eating food off of sticks and leaves and things like that. So it was cool.
I would imagine getting sticks and leaves and like soup or something that gets old pretty quickly, or granola bars. It's like I'm not having anything oatmeal based for a while now.
Yeah, I've had so many Cliff bars that I have a little fat roll that just is probably dedicated to them. But sorry.
Okay. Well, you were documenting your journey and you were also videotaping it and you posted some stuff on YouTube. How is that going? I mean, are you putting that together now, or are you working on more footage? Or
See, I'm really glad you asked this question because I feel like I am a perfectionist, and it is the greatest asset and the greatest plague that you can ever have if you want to release things. So I'm sitting here, and I've close to 50 hours of footage. So
mm-hmm.
obviously I've looked through all of it, watched it all, had the detail and annotate everything. All right, this happens at this time, this happens at this time. How would I splice that in? And then you get overwhelmed by it too. You're like, this is too much. I've actually had somebody from the Dogecoin community who's a professional editor reach
Mm-hmm.
out to me and say, look, here's some test footage of things that I've already edited. Can I help you edit this footage down? And at this time, it looks like the most logical answer because I do feel, excuse me, a bit overwhelmed and underqualified with the potential that this footage has because it's really great footage. I mean, special for sure, and I feel like I'm not the right architect to create it into a masterpiece, and I really hope I find that right person. But it's going to be hard for me to give all this footage away and trust them without really having some conversations of the goal of the project, where they want to take it artistically, what their motives are going to be behind it, what
Mm-hmm.
message they want the footage to send. I want to align with somebody on all those levels before it's released if I'm not able to release it myself. So that's kind of the dilemma that I'm in right now, but I do hope for that footage to be coming to a Dogecoin theater or YouTube near you
Well,
in the
have
near
you thought
future.
about doing like a crowdsource thing where there would be a crowdsource of people helping you, but also maybe a funding aspect to where it could be released either through a Vimo or a BitTorrent or directly through YouTube to the community? Is that something you've contemplated?
It's not something I've given adequate thought, because not something that I even understand the full ramifications of. Like, if I was to upload all the raw footage, all of the accompanying music that I would hope would fit in the video some way,
Mm-hmm.
it would be fascinating to see what could come together if the entire community made one super video, and I
Mm-hmm.
would be completely interested in all ears if we could make that happen in some way, shape, or form. That could really
Like
be the best outcome.
yeah, because that'd be something. Because that's what a lot of artists now are doing is they upload stuff and they give people now permission to remix with like music and
Hmm.
stuff and do their own videos. I mean, this could be another way for the community to not only help and participate and help one another, particularly like you said you're not sure about your whole like giving control and stuff like that, but editing process you can also learn, but other people can learn from it as well, and it could be a
Hmm.
great way to be fun about it. Not to mention you could probably like different languages and stuff like that because Dogecoin is global and people
All
can
right,
maybe
we have to get
visit.
more serious about this. All right, actually, I got it. I don't need to write it down, but that is a fascinating idea because it does also go so well with what Dogecoin does perfectly already. I mean, potentially a lot of these people have old GPUs sitting around
Hmm.
anyway from the old mining days before everything went ASIC. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of computational power for video editing or whatever it may be. That's actually what I use for video editing right now is the old mining computer. Um, great thought though. All right, we got to put a pin in that and figure out a way to make this realistic and tangible. But I really like that.
Okay. Now you also talked about you had a project of you were going to sponsor some type of video thing, and then you also have your kind of a music thing going on. Do you want to talk about those two ideas?
Yeah. So the video thing didn't quite pan out as I expected. But here's the thing about imagination. An
Yes.
individual's imagination is always creating reality at every moment. You have to be able to imagine it before it can happen, and that's kind of how the river adventure was. So I didn't really. It's hard for me to gauge what real potential I had of amassing money if we were putting it towards an advertising campaign. And we
Mm-hmm.
did make a little bit of money on the Rocket Hub campaign. I do have to knock Rocket Hub though because the campaign ended on the 21st, and I still haven't received an electronic check of any of the money that's been raised. So that battle is ongoing. It's been a month now, and I'm not really getting the responses I expected from Rocket Hub. They said that the check had been sent. I still haven't received it. But as far as the rewards for the incentive program on Rocket Hub, it
Mm-hmm.
looks like I'm just going to have to go out of my own pocket to pay for everybody's rewards until I get the dispute settled with Rocket Hub themselves. So
I've
that's.
I'm not familiar with Rocket Hub. Which crowdsourcing place is that? Is it a very specific one or just another one that's out there?
It's it's unique in certain ways. Here are a few ways it's unique. Kickstarter is all or nothing. So you're either project's getting funded, you're getting the money, boom, it's done. Rocket Hub is not like that at all. It's whatever you raise, you raise. You get to keep it and you get to put it towards the idea that you had in mind. And I feel like that was the most fair because the idea, I didn't raise the goal. I didn't raise what we expected to raise. We also didn't get the YouTube video submissions that we expected. We didn't really actually, in all honesty, get any at all YouTube submissions for a video commercial. But with that, I still felt like there's this little couple $100 that I need to give back to the community once everything is resolved with Rocket Hub, and I plan to do that on the best terms and best way possible.
Okay. Well, just an idea. I don't know if you've seen on the Bitcoin or anything like that. There's Lighthouse, which is a cryptocurrency base, and they do operate the same way that Rocket Hub does, where you don't have to be like a Kickstarter. You don't have to reach that goal. Is you can have like a partial amount or whatever amount it is to whatever end date you put it. If you ever to consider to try to do that again, just an idea. But what about this music thing I see that your post and stuff, through your Facebook and stuff? Is this your own company or is this something you work for? Is this a side project of yours?
Yeah, it's an independent record label that I'm a co-owner of. Khimera, I'll bring it back to the beast, has the head of a lion, a second head of a goat, a body of like a lion slash goat, and the tail of a snake. But everybody that owns the record label with me co-owns it. It aligns with our zodiac signs and things of this nature, and it really is the physical embodiment of one beast, one togetherness, and one animal taking on the second definition of chimera, which is an impossible dream. Because making it in the music industry, it is a sort of impossible dream that so many people try at, but we believe we have the intangible qualities to take it to the next level and make that impossible dream a reality.
So are
So
you a Pittsburgh base or is it Cincinnati or are you kind of regional?
yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of success regionally. Was moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, actually before I started with Khimera, so that I could be signed to an independent record label down there. And I'm really thankful for that experience, but things did not pan out as I expected or planned on ahead of time. It really gave me a good look at the music industry, got to see it for what it really is, and I luckily got out before anything was completely contractually binding or too crazy for me, and that's when I decided the only way to really do this is to do it my own way, on my own terms, with my own deadlines, and freedom of creative and artistic expression, and that's kind of how I developed it myself.
So do you own your own content? Is it Demon CA protected or like how are you guys distributing and networking out there in the world?
Yeah, everything, Chimera is an LLC, and everything is, we also do clothing, so we make Dream Impossible clothing and merchandise that we sell at shows. But yeah, copyright everything that we release, and in all honesty, our work ethic is ridiculous, and our output is ridiculously small, and it's by design, because the people that I work with are all perfectionists, so anything that is officially released will be mixed to perfection. It'll be, we really want our catalog to be looked back upon as artwork at the end of the day when it's all said and done. And it's hard to be in that lane and make hip-hop because hip-hop has such a bad name for itself. It's gross. It's turned into something that promotes a lot of evils in our culture, and we don't want to be that at all. We want to shed the positive light on it. So more to come on that way. We have some big projects on the way.
Is there anything you like to promote now or make people aware of? I mean, I have a link to your production company, or is there any like particular artists or anything you want to say, hey, or a festival you guys are going to be going to, or?
All right, so January 31st, just next week, we'll be opening for Juicy J at the Bogarts Theater in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's going to be a huge show, a couple thousand people. It'll be a lot of fun. That's really the next large-scale show that we have planned. We are in talks with a couple festivals for this summer, but we don't have any of the contracts finished, so I can't really speak on them yet. I do have a project that should be on the way soon, but I continue to go back on it. I'm just like, all right, it can be a little better. I can change this, I can tweak that, but at some point I have to release it. So one of my other co-owners, Monty C. Benjamin, he has a project on the way called Carpe Diem, which will melt your brains. The blogs will love it. It's really, really impressive, and it's like a feat of imagination. The guy is out there. He's a lyrical genius. I have Profound. He has his project on the way. Ape should be due this year. Arcane Beats. He's the hacker wizard that got me into all the cryptocurrency in the first place, and he makes all of our instrumentals and he masters everything. And he never quits working. He doesn't really sleep, and he's just always working on music. So a lot of great things are coming from him as well.
And will you guys incorporate cryptocurrency into your platform as a means of purchasing or maybe marketing for your guys' band
Yeah,
and your label?
everything on our website, as soon as we put the merchandise back up there, we had to
Hmm.
take it down for a while. We're having payment processing issues. But it might even be to this day still possible to purchase our shirts with Dogecoin. And that was by design because the community is huge. And if I could be somehow a musician that was linked to the rise of Dogecoin, there's no conflict of interest there for me. It's all kind of new, intriguing, and who knows what could happen. But I'll always happily accept Dogecoin for our merchandise and music in the future.
And do you see like music and Dogecoin or cryptocurrencies in the future being entwined together or feeding into one another? I mean, what do you see the future there?
Yes, and that's another great asset or great niche of the market that Dogecoin could potentially carve out because music, hip hop sales, I'll speak on because that's what I'm most familiar with. The album sales actually declined 20% this past year in 2014, but streaming services made up for that decrease in album sales. So the revenue actually stayed just about the same where the albums were falling off, streaming services were picking up. So if Dogecoin could incorporate with more streaming services, I know that we're on YouTube, but there just needs to be continued development into Dogecoin, filling areas that are potential voids to be filled. If there was any way for musicians to make more music or make more money or more Doge off of music, I don't think there's a musician out there that would turn it down. And obviously, the more places it's accepted, the more readily it can be used.
Okay. Well, you spoke about how the decline of album sales and the rise of streaming service, and there was like a few months ago with Taylor Swift pulling off her stuff off of Spotify. I mean, do you see streaming services as a means for an artist to make money? I mean, there's been a very big battle and debate between artists and labels and the media and consumers on this issue. I mean, where do you see the future of music with the way the internet has developed?
The internet has been the best thing for music and the worst at the same time.
Hmm.
But I always kind of lean towards the best. The
Hmm.
best, not just the internet, but all the technologies that come along with it, the microphones that we're able to have. I mean, we can have a studio right now in Arcane Beats basement that is on par or better than studios that Michael Jackson was recording in back in the day. I mean, as far as sound quality wise, now, we're not recording on vinyl or anything, so I guess that can always be argued. But I would say quality of these microphones, the democratization of the technology that we have at our hands is amazing, and it really does allow the best artists to go for it. I think about money and streaming services. I think the best one is going to survive, whether it's Spotify, whether it's this, that, and the other. I think the music industry is big enough to find ways to make money, and ultimately, I hope the music industry, as it stands today, kind of does begin to take a back seat, and more of these independent artists are rising to the forefront. Because if you're really in it just for the money, you get out of it. If you're not in it for the artwork, if you're not in it for a message, get out of the music industry, and
Well, that's what
that's
I've personally been seeing because I'm very big into music and I listen to all the sort of different genres, but I'm seeing more and more independent artists just pushing ahead. They have no affiliation with a label.
yeah,
A lot of them are staying independent. Some have, like, after two or three albums they've had out there and then they break, they get picked up or signed out. But I see that more and more either they're coming after SoundCloud or they're coming off of YouTube or they're coming from somewhere where other than the traditional music industry way that it seems to be really chipping away at that, and I think that's great. Personally, I just want artists to be paid. That's all. I want
yeah,
them to, because you see the stories, you see everyone's seen the behind the music, where people were royally screwed over and it continued to be so. So I'm hoping that technology enables and allows artists to not only develop and we get great content, great music, but they also are getting their due, really.
definitely, definitely. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to talk about Dogecoin, about your music industry, or any other projects out there, or any questions for me, or anything you
Um,
want to put up to the community?
Yeah, I probably will showcase some of my ignorance by asking these questions, but I'm glad I have the opportunity to do so because I feel that I understand Dogecoin conceptually very well, but as
Hmm.
far as the actual architecture that's going on in the background and the coding and things of that nature, I'm not quite as understanding of. So some of these might be left field, big ideas, but maybe you can shed some light on them for me.
Okay, I can do my best. I've been studying it for a while, so I will do my best.
Good. All
So what is
right,
your
so
question?
here's one question idea. Is there any possibility, I'm just reading through some of these notes I made, of a Dogecoin browser plugin, maybe like a Google Chrome plugin, that made Dogecoins easily accessible, tradable, kind of like a wallet that was always on your desktop that was interfaced with your business at any time that you were to log into a site like Facebook or Twitter or Reddit that accepts Dogecoins that would make ease of use of your Dogecoins on the said site?
I know Cryptiv, which is a tipping platform, it has done that. They have a Chrome browser interface where you can use Cryptiv and it allows you to have it in your browser so you can access it directly. I know that a couple other, like the Doge chip app may be doing that. And I know Bitcoin has done that, but I know offhand that Cryptiv has done that where you have in your browser, you have the Doge aspect of Cryptiv where you have it interface in your browser and you can easily access your wallet. As far as payment services, I know the best one I know as far as Dogecoin goes is it's called Shapeshift, where you can trade out your Dogecoin into Bitcoin for payment services, and there's a browser aspect of it because not a lot of payment platforms accept Dogecoin at the moment. So if
Mhm.
you do have Dogecoin and you want to trade it into Bitcoin, you can easily pay for goods and services like that within your browser.
Fascinating. All right, well, good to know. There's one thing I learned. Next, this might even seem a bit weirder, but I do wish, and I know that we have things that are like this, but I do wish that we had some sort of a Dogecoin resume almost that would make investors salivate upon reading it. Something that's short, concise, and it had statistics of Dogecoin's history, possibly advantages over Bitcoin, or just really like a one-two punch between statistics and the history of Dogecoin that would make
I
investors
was
salivate.
I've seen like on the R Dogecoin there's a consistent Doge like what Doge is doing market analysis, and I wish there was like a way to bridge that and what YodaShibe does about the community and bridge those two either in a video format or a nice little white paper explaining to like any investor the benefits of Doge community. And I wish the Dogecoin Foundation had done that already because
Mhm.
there's so much about Dogecoin that is much better than Bitcoin because the ease of usage is much easier. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lower threshold as far as monetary value investing, but it's faster, is more flexible, and my understanding it also carries more the megabytes information than Bitcoin does. It has a higher rate and also its usage increases over time. It has right now we're at the highest amount of active wallets versus Bitcoin. I mean, people who use Dogecoin use it. They don't
Mhm.
see it as an investment. They're actually using the currency.
Yes.
So that is our biggest benefit. I mean, they're not holding it or hoarding it or waiting it for it to trade up to 1,000 or playing the trading game. They're actually using it. They want to spend it because they see it as a better spending option than a credit card or PayPal or writing a check or any of that or dealing with the banking system. That's our
Yeah.
greatest benefit, I personally think.
Yeah. And it was interesting to me because I'm fairly familiar with Dogecoin and its concepts and even its history because I was started on day 31 mining. But to an outsider, it did seem almost esoteric in its scale. It was hard for me to explain, and I tried to put it in layman's terms possible at times. I've even gone as far as explaining to people, all right, take everything I just said, throw it out the window. Just imagine Chuck E. Cheese tokens on the internet. very frictionless, fast transactions that don't really have your name attached to them. And they're like, all right, I get it now, I get it now. But if there was something that just made it easy for the common man to understand, really get a bigger market adopting it, that would be great.
Well, my pitch when I explain it to people is I explain to them like when you go to the convenience store, and a lot of convenience stores are like small businesses, and you see on the sign that says you have to spend $5 or more in order to use your debit card. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to do that with Dogecoin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I explain to them the reason is because that the banking system, the banking that if you're 5 cents off at one time because your paycheck didn't come in and you get charged $30 overdraft,
Yeah.
that merchant is getting charged every time he swipes his card, and so he wants to make money. We all want to make money, uh, but with Dogecoin you don't have to worry about it. You can put down 5 cents electronically or 10 cents somewhere, because if you think of all the transactions we make, like when you go to Taco Bell or you go to the store and you buy a pair of jeans, if it's
Mhm.
under $25 to a banking system, that's a microtransaction. Think
Yeah.
of all the things that you buy under $25 on a consistent basis you don't think
Every-
about.
Yeah. Daily.
Daily,
Incredible.
daily. And that is I would say there's probably about a good 60 to 70% of all banking transactions occur under $25. If you really think about like gas,
Oh,
paying of like your electric bill, depending on where you are, it could be under $25 because you're in an apartment or something like that, or water bills. And you don't have to pay that extra fee. It's not incorporated all those little transaction tax fees and stuff like that. It's just like cash. You give
yeah.
someone $5, you're done.
Yeah.
And that's all it is an electronic version of $5, you're done.
Hmm.
And you don't have to worry about it. I mean, my mother has had to change her banking information like almost 4 times in the last 2 years because of hacks.
That's a nightmare.
That is a nightmare. I mean, none of her funds were taken. She has, the credit protection, but her bank, as a precaution, has sent her 4 different cards. She just recently got a new one because of the Home Depot thing.
Jeez.
So, yeah. So think of it in that sense that you don't have to worry about that when using this. No one is going to have your address, your name, your credit numbers, and then like somewhere in Texas is buying like a lunch or jeans or a car off of your information.
Yeah.
Because I personally had that happen to me. I've had my identity stolen like 3 to 4 times, and it's not anything of my doing. It has to do with other people. Like my university back in 2002 got hacked. Like 2002 or 2004 got hacked, and a lot of students' information was out there.
Jeez.
Um, through my father and stuff, because I was a DOD, the DOD got hacked, and there was a lot of medical information that happened. And then there was those little slide things where you slide and people, the skimmers. I had that
Mhm.
happen to me at a music festival, and I was a little inebriated, but I was sober enough to realize there was something off because I went to an ATM machine just to withdraw cash because it was easier for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my cash, and I was like,
What?
I was like touching the
Oh,
machine and knocking it, and I was like, so I went to the service clerk because it was in a convenience store. It's like, hey, this ATM machine didn't give me anything, and he acted really weird about it. And I remember he wasn't like concerned. He's like, oh, well, it's not our machine. Are you sure? You didn't do any of that. He was like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. It's like, huh.
oh, that's sickening.
So I went back to the ATM machine, and it has like the little number you could call. So I called the ATM machine, and then I called my bank, and I let them know that I didn't get my funds, and they shut down my account. And what happened was, well, they didn't shut down my account, but they made a notice. And what happened was, the following day, I went to a convenience store and bought my typical coffee and stuff before going to work. And then when I went to go pay lunch, I couldn't. There was no funds in my account. And I was like, what? And within like literally when I went to go check my online transaction, literally within 10 minutes of me doing that coffee and my little snack that I get every morning,
Mhm.
someone in the state of Texas went and bought a baby crib.
Wow.
And I had to call him and say, look at the transaction. How could I physically be in the store and it's a physical location, you can see it in the data, and then be in a physical store all the way in the state of Texas?
Jeez.
So it took 2 weeks for me to get the funds back and everything, but that's how quickly that stuff is. That's
Jeez.
yeah, and
So
I
that was
really
directly
need those
at
funds.
the end of the music festival, though?
It was the Neon Review in Las Vegas. They have it every year downtown. It's like a
Oh,
bunch of independent bands come in, and it's like It started out as a 3-day thing. I think now it's like a 2-weekend thing where the bands come out and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. I saw a bunch of bands. I saw like the Henry the Clay people. I saw a lot of upcoming bands and stuff, and it's always fun. But it was like, man.
Because I was worried that you were at a music festival that was like deep in the hills somewhere.
Oh no, no, it was downtown Las
Man,
Vegas.
you get hacked out there. You're screwed. Like you don't have
Yeah.
any money, but you're in a music festival. That's crazy.
Well, back in college, there was a dorm mate of mine that got screwed that way, where her credit card information was stopped because someone had stolen her credit card and it turned out to be somebody within the dorm or anything like that. It was like a person-to-person thing, but she was out on the road and couldn't get any gas, so she had to have
Oh,
money wired to her. So yeah,
that's a nightmare.
that is a nightmare. But you hear stories of people having houses and cars, and they have to spend years in their own personal money to fight all of that. And with cryptocurrencies, you don't have to worry about it. It's just like carrying cash, but you're not having to worry about someone robbing you because you're carrying $1,000 on you.
Hmm.
So, and there's some people like my grandfather was one of those people. My grandpa Mac used to carry money like that, and that's what an old person does. I personally would not be like, okay, which pocket is it in, and everything all zippered up. I would be so self-conscious
Yeah,
carrying
I
that
kind
amount of
of do
money.
prefer cash, and I think that's why I prefer cryptocurrency in the future.
Yeah.
Which actually leads me to a question. Are you familiar with the technological singularity?
Yes, about the concept of AIs and being self-aware. Yes, yes, I
Yeah, I'm
am.
just curious as somebody in the Dogecoin community, how you feel about the potential of the near future and maybe even long-term future and cryptocurrencies going hand in hand with that.
Well, I think going hand in hand into that, if you think in the sense of like in Star Trek or in the future, you always see like everyone's doing credit. I
Mhm,
think instead of being credit in the sense that we know it as a credit card and you have to pay eventually that credit card,
mhm,
cryptocurrency is going to be that credit. It's going to be you have to have these credits, and that's what we're going to get to is we're going to be everything's going to be electronic and it's not going to be any physical items.
yeah.
As far as the singularity is, I've discussed this before on a different podcast called the Cool Story show, where I think to order for the singularity to happen, we have to program it. It can't. While we have like little machines, nano machines, medical machines that can self-correct themselves, it's only because we've programmed them self-correct themselves. They didn't decide one day, oh, my wheel doesn't work. Let me fix that. you know. So I'm not sure that we will be willing to actually create that self-aware machine. I mean, we'll get smarter computers
Mhm,
and they'll compute and make things for us and do all these computations that we can't do or take us time to do.
yeah.
But I'm not sure we're going to actually get to the point where we will just sit down and decide we want a self-aware machine
Mhm,
because you can't idiot-proof a self-aware machine. I mean, if you think of it in the sense that if a self-aware machine, I'm thinking it's going to come either from the medical field or from the military.
mhm,
Uh, if you think about nuclear bombs, if you drop a nuclear bomb, it's not going to go off.
mhm,
There's so many idiot-proof measures that for it to go off, you have to go through like all these different stages for it to actually blow up.
yeah.
And they've idiot-proof it in the sense because they have to transport their bombs from one place to another. Their plane can crash, a car can crash. You don't want those things to go off just because someone hit a hammer or knocked it.
Yeah.
But with a self-aware machine, how can you idiot-proof that for it to not be misused or for it to be used against you?
That's
So,
the scary implications of it. But yeah,
yeah.
I'm glad I got your opinion on that. And I'm
Well, we
glad
have to
you
think.
go
Well,
first
think
there.
about drones. Like if people have hacked into drones, think of about the military sense of the drone being turned around and attacking soldiers because they hacked into the computer stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an issue, but they've so idiot-proofed and so made it so it's not completely possible, but it's within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything is hackable, really. And the more we rely on technology, there are going to be some crazy futures probably fought only on the internet.
Well, I recently had surgery about a couple years ago, and my medication was computer proof, like the morphine drip was computer proof, where it was timed and everything like that. So think about what if there was a fail in the chip and they gave me too much or
Oh,
didn't give me
really?
enough,
Yeah.
and there's not that, well, there's a nurse checking and making sure. What if they eventually phase out that human element
Hmm.
and people can get sick or whatever? So, yes, there's an over reliance, but I think just as a sense that as humans, we don't want our tools to be our masters. We want to be the master of our tools.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that's the case. The worst case scenario I think of is like like with any tool, like a drunk driver. If a drunk driver, like a bad person, gets behind a car and kills somebody, it's not the car's fault; it's the human's fault. And I'm thinking like if something were to happen, like the singularity, is because a human being launched it on people, and
Hmm.
not necessarily the machine itself.
Yeah.
Hate to just hate to spin it, to burst your Skynet dream there, but
That's what it always comes back to for me. Always a Terminator scenario.
yeah, Skynet.
That. Yeah, it's been really great talking to you, though.
Well, it was great talking to you as well. I'm gonna send you a little email to make sure I have all the about information and stuff like that. What I will do is take the audio and put it on my podcast, but I'm gonna just promote the video as well to make sure more people hear about this. Come back to you and say, hey, maybe they want to help you with your editing your video, or they want to know more about RiverDoge or more about your company and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll stay in contact over email, maybe about the best way to pull off the group edited or crowd edited Doge.
Yeah. I
Also,
mean, there's a lot of tools I've developed recently that makes that possible, and there's been a lot of success for people doing that. So maybe might be an option
yeah.
for you to consider. But
Awesome.
thank you very much for coming on. I mean, this was fun.
This is very fun. Thank you so much for having me. You are a fantastic host. I really like how prepared you were and everything. So I hope your podcast continues to grow, and I'll help you promote the podcast and everything in the future. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
in February, I plan on doing a Patreon launch and promoting more. I mean, I've been pretty much doing this on my own and winging it and just trying to figure out how to talk to people, how to put a show together. And I feel that I've learned enough to where I say, hey, I'm not that horrible. You can listen to me.
You're good. You're really good. Yeah, I'll talk to Arcane about maybe like helping you cross promote with our website and things too. Just get our music audience a little bit more engaged in Dogecoin because everybody wins at the end of the day.
Oh,
Network.
I don't know if you've seen on the Dogecoin there's a couple things and I'll email you them, but I know on the Bitcoin end there's like Pure Tracks, BitTorrent might be accepting Bitcoin soon. I don't know if you've seen what BitTorrent's been doing with music and movies.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that's where you can purchase music within an app, and it also streams like Spotify within the app itself, and it's all in beta right now where you can upload your stuff and you can I think you get like I know on BitTorrent the musicians get 90%. I think somewhere along those same lines with this particular music thing I've been noticing the same thing where people purchase your stuff through the app with Bitcoin. So, but I'll send that and see if that'd be of interest to you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely interested in all those developments. Those are fascinating.
Mhm. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'll shoot you an email in a few minutes and stuff. And again, like, thank you. This is, like I said, this has been fun. And I think you're a little crazy going down the Mississippi River. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you said it.
I
I am a little, in the very soul, yes, a little crazy, but
I
that's an
I
adventure.
used to take the train because I don't like to fly back east, and we had to go up through New Orleans, right next to the Mississippi River and stuff like that. And I have family live in Kansas, and I've gone road trips and stuff. I've been through over the river. I know what the Ohio River looks like. I know what the Mississippi River looks like. You're a little crazy.
Well, thank you. I think that is a badge of honor as we continue.
You should. You should have like a little crazy Dogecoin like badge or something like that, to put on.
Yes, yes, indeed.
All right, I'm okay. I think we should go from there. But thank you very much for coming on. Is there any other last bit before we go you want to say or anything like that?
Uh, to the moon, obviously, we can't end on a note that doesn't say to the moon. I love you guys all. Thank you so much for keeping me positive, keeping me entertained, and keeping me upbeat. The world needs more of that, and anything you can do to help your fellow man, let your hand go, because that's kind of what Dogecoin is all about to me. So thank you once again so much for the interview. Awesome opportunity. Great to talk to you guys. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and that's the best way to end it, to the moon and help your fellow man.
To the moon, yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bye bye.